You know the feeling. You walk into a room, glance at the wall, and there it is. A tiny little crack just kind of snaking its way across the drywall. Your first instinct is probably to just shrug it off, right? Just part of the house getting older. But what if it's more than that? What if that little imperfection is actually a message? A clue your home is trying to send you, maybe even a warning that something's happening just under the surface. You see, these cracks are basically your house communicating with you. And in this explainer, we're going to become home detectives. We're going to decode these messages, figure out exactly what they mean, and know when it's time to actually do something about it. So first things first, let's get a handle on your home's secret language. Well, yeah, some cracks are totally normal. The key thing to remember is that none of them should just be ignored. Every single crack has a story to tell. Okay, our investigation starts by rounding up the usual suspects. These are the most common culprits behind those little, everyday cracks that, honestly, are usually more of a cosmetic thing than a full-blown crisis. So, the three most common reasons you're going to see a crack are normal house settling, big swings in temperature and humidity, and sometimes just a rushed or sloppy installation job. The good news? Most of the time, these are pretty simple fixes. Let's dig into settling. Just think of your house like it's breathing. As the seasons change, humid summers, dry, cold winters, the wood and drywall actually expand and contract. This tiny movement is what causes those little hairline cracks, and you'll often spot them near door frames or up in the corners. Good sealing can usually keep them at bay. And then, of course, you've got simple human error. If the drywall joints weren't taped right, or maybe the screws were drilled in way too tight, you're absolutely going to see stress cracks pop up. Now, these aren't a sign that your house's foundation is in trouble. It's really just a flaw in the finish work. All right, now that we know the common causes, it's time to open up our detective toolkit. We're going to really analyze the different types of cracks you might find, because believe it or not, the shape, the size, and the direction of a crack, they're all crucial clues. First up in our case file, hairline cracks. These are these super, super thin ones. We're talking less than a millimeter wide. If you see these, seriously, don't panic. They are almost always just cosmetic, caused by that normal settling we were just talking about. A quick skim coat and a fresh layer of paint, and they're gone. Next on the list, vertical cracks. You'll spot these straight up and down lines right where two sheets of drywall meet. They can be a hint of some minor foundation settling, so while it's not an emergency, it is something you'll want to keep an eye on. If you notice it getting any wider over time, that's when you know it's time for a closer look. Now, horizontal cracks, these are a little more concerning. A crack that runs sideways across your wall can signal that there's stress on your home's framing. This could be from all sorts of things, but it's definitely one of those cracks you want to have checked out by a pro, just to be safe. Then we have a pretty common one, spiderweb cracks. This sort of map-like pattern, well, it usually isn't a sign of structural danger. It's typically just caused by a bad paint job or some shoddy taping work. It's not a threat to your home's integrity for sure, but it definitely makes a wall look old and tired. Okay, we've covered the usual everyday stuff. Now it's time to look for the smoking gun, the clues that tell you this is no longer a minor issue. These are the red flags, the signs that point to an urgent underlying problem that you need to deal with right away. So if you see a crack, but it's brought some friends along, like yellow or brown stains, a soft or bubbly texture, peeling paint, or that telltale musty smell, you've got a water problem. And this is serious. Water weakens drywall from the inside out and can lead to mold. The crack you're seeing is just the symptom. The real problem is a hidden leak somewhere. This right here is another huge red flag. Big cracks running diagonally, especially if they're coming from the corners of your doors and windows, that can be a sign of major foundation or framing shifts. Basically, your house is moving in a way it really shouldn't be, and this crack is the evidence. And here is the single most important test. Just take a coin. If you can slide that coin into the crack, stop what you're doing and start calling a professional. That is the universal rule of thumb that separates a small cosmetic issue from a potentially serious structural problem that needs an expert immediately. So what happens if we just ignore these clues? What are the real consequences of just, slapping some paint over the problem and hoping it just goes away? Let's close this case by looking at the very high cost of doing nothing. Ignoring your home's messages has real, tangible consequences. That little water stain could be hiding a massive mold problem behind the wall. Cracks around your windows? They're letting all that expensive heated air escape all winter long. And of course, when it's time to sell, even minor unrepaired cracks can scream poor maintenance to potential buyers, and that hurts your property value. Here's the bottom line, and it couldn't be clearer. The cost of an early, simple fix is just a tiny fraction of what a major restoration will cost you later on. Dealing with that small crack today doesn't just fix your wall, it literally saves you a massive amount of money and stress down the road. It's a small investment with a huge payoff. So the next time you walk past that little crack in the hallway, you won't just see a flaw anymore, you'll see a clue. You now have the skills to read the signs. So the only question left is, what is your home trying to tell you?